Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling something that, well, it touches all of our lives, often without us even realizing it. Executive functioning, or EF.
hmm
Think of it as the behind-the-scenes manager of your brain. We're going to explore what makes this manager tick.
Right. And we're drawing from some really interesting sources, articles, a Reddit discussion that was quite revealing, actually,
Oh, yeah.
and a presentation from an executive function coach. Lots to unpack.
Absolutely. So our mission here is to bring these crucial mental skills into focus and show you exactly how they play out in your daily routines.
Exactly. We've pulled together, a really diverse set of viewpoints to get a complete picture. We have articles that break down the core concepts of EF, offer some tangible solutions,
Okay.
that Reddit thread where people get really honest about their struggles,
Ah.
and whether common advice actually helps them.
That's key. That does it actually help part.
Totally. And then there's the structured approach with actionable techniques from the coach we mentioned.
Good stuff. And for you, the learner, listening in, we really want to cut through any confusing jargon. We want to give you a clear understanding of what's really going on with your executive functions.
Yeah, highlighting strategies that actually work and maybe getting into why some of that standard productivity advice just falls flat for some people.
Right. The goal is practical takeaways you can actually use without it feeling like, a textbook.
Definitely not a lecture.
Okay, so let's start with the basics then. What exactly is executive functioning?
Okay. So at its heart, executive functioning is really a collection of mental abilities. These skills help us plan ahead, keep things organized, focus our attention.
Like a laser beam you said earlier.
Well, ideally.
Hmm.
Also remembering important details, managing our time wisely, and importantly, controlling our impulses and reactions.
Okay.
Think of it like air traffic control for your brain. It's directing where your mental energy goes, monitoring what's happening,
Right.
helping you map out routes to your goals, and keeping you hopefully on schedule.
Air traffic control for the brain. I like that. It makes sense. So what are the specific skills this control tower manages? The coach mentioned about a dozen areas.
Yeah, there are several key skills under that EF umbrella. First up, impulse control, that little internal brake pedal, that tells you, wait, maybe don't.
Don't hit send.
Exactly. Then there's working memory. This one's tricky. It's like trying to juggle several fragile ideas at once, and someone keeps throwing you new ones.
Oh, I can picture that. Very easy to drop something.
Precisely.
Yeah.
That's a daily challenge if working memory is an issue. Then we have problem solving, navigating mental roadblocks, and attention regulation, directing your focus where it needs to be and keeping it there.
Which is harder than it sounds sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. And let's not forget motivation, that inner spark that gets us started and keeps us plugging away.
Okay, got those. What else is in this mental toolkit?
Well, there's planning, which is about creating those mental roadmaps, right?
Oh.
Getting from point A to point B, and organization, setting up systems, keeping your thoughts and maybe your desk in some kind of order.
Some kind of order, yes. Emphasis on some kind.
Right. Time management is critical, too, that internal sense of time, judging how long tasks will actually take.
Which can be wildly off sometime.
Tell me about it. Then there's flexibility, cognitive flexibility, specifically being able to shift your thinking, look at things differently, and metacognition, which is fascinating.
What's that again?
It's like thinking about your own thinking, having that little observer inside going, is this approach working? Maybe try something else.
Ah, okay. Self-awareness during the process.
Exactly. And finally, self-monitoring, keeping track of your progress, and making adjustments as you go.
Wow, okay. That is quite a list. So when these skills aren't firing on all cylinders, what does that actually look like? What's the impact on daily life?
Well, when these executive functions aren't, let's say, optimal, it can show up in a lot of ways. You might find yourself constantly forgetting appointments or maybe really struggling to follow through on commitments.
Like work deadlines or even just meeting a friend.
Exactly. Unexpected changes can feel incredibly overwhelming. Juggling multiple tasks might just shut things down. Procrastination often becomes like the default setting, which then just leads to more stress.
Yeah, that spiral.
Right. And even communication can get tricky, especially when emotions are running high, because regulating those responses is also part of EF.
It sounds like so many of those everyday frustrations people just kind of brush off could actually be tied to these underlying functions.
That's a really good point.
And I thought it was important how our sources stressed what EF is not a measure of.
Oh, absolutely crucial. Difficulties with executive functioning have zero bearing on someone's intelligence. None. Or their motivation deep down, or their character.
Right.
These are skills. And like any skill, they can be developed, they can be supported.
That's hopeful.
It is. And it's also really important to understand the connection, often with neurodevelopmental conditions like ADHD or autism,
Okay.
or after traumatic brain injuries, or even alongside mental health conditions like depression and anxiety. It's not about being lazy or not trying. It's often neurological or psychological.
Right. It's about how the brain is wired or how it's coping right now.
hmm
Okay, so let's dig into the complexities a bit more, especially in adults. The EF coach, the presentation we watched, touched on some brain science.
Yes, the prefrontal cortex, right at the front of the brain, it's the main hub for executive functions. It has these key circuits. There's the what circuit, crucial for working memory, keeping goals in mind while you act.
Okay.
The when circuit helps with organizing tasks in sequence, managing timelines, like what comes first.
Makes sense.
Interestingly, the research suggests the why circuit, which handles emotional regulation, often matures a bit slower.
Ah, which might explain some things.
Could do, yeah. Why emotional control can be tougher for some folks or at certain ages. And the fourth is the how circuit, which is about self-awareness, knowing your own feelings, your experiences.
So if there are glitches or maybe differences
Yeah,
in these circuits.
exactly. Impairments or just variations can lead to challenges with memory, planning, controlling emotions, even interacting socially. But importantly, it's not just brain structure.
Right, there are other factors. Our sources mention quite a few things that can complicate EF in adults.
All loads. Your early childhood environment, for one. If a kid's main focus has to be on just feeling safe, there's less mental energy left over for developing these higher-level EF skills.
That makes a lot of sense.
What else? Sleep. Disruptions in sleep patterns, poor nutrition. These put a huge strain on cognitive resources. Think of good sleep and food as like premium fuel for your brain's EF engine.
Yeah, running on empty doesn't help planning.
Not at all.
Hmm.
Ongoing stress is another big one. Illness, money worries, difficult relationships, they all drain that mental battery needed for EF.
Oh.
And something often overlooked, the effort of masking. Constantly regulating emotions and outward behavior, which many neurodivergent people do all day long. That takes a ton of cognitive energy.
I can only imagine. It sounds exhausting just thinking about it. What about mental health specifically?
Yeah, anxiety and depression have a profound impact. When your brain feels threatened, like in anxiety, it can shift into survival mode.
Fight or flight.
Right. And the planning, complex thinking parts of the brain kind of take a back seat. Depression can really sap motivation and focus too.
Okay.
And then there are the underlying cognitive profiles themselves. ADHD, dyslexia, autism. They inherently affect how the brain processes information, which shapes executive functioning. Hormones, medications, even just the crazy demands of modern life.
The constant notifications.
Exactly. Unrealistic expectations for sustained focus. It all piles on. Honestly, it's a wonder any of us manage sometimes.
It really is. Now, that Reddit discussion you mentioned, I found those perspectives really insightful. It sounds like a lot of the standard productivity advice just doesn't work for people with significant EF challenges.
That is such a critical point. The Reddit thread really drove that home. You know, the classic, just use a planner.
Oh, yeah? Heard that one a few times.
Well, for people with significant executive dysfunction, it often just doesn't stick.
Yeah.
So many people with ADHD chimed in saying they have, like, drawers full of beautiful, unused planners.
Right. The problem isn't the lack of a planner.
Exactly. It's the underlying difficulty in consistently using it, remembering it exists, or even figuring out how to make it work for their brain.
Someone on Reddit made a great point. They said maybe those strategies like planners are more for occasional EF slips, when anyone gets a bit disorganized, rather than for persistent executive dysfunction.
That's a really astute observation. It nails the difference. Offering a surface-level tool doesn't fix the deeper issue, whether it's neurological or psychological. And that thread just underscored the need for empathy, really trying to understand the daily struggle, the constant effort involved for someone with EF challenges, approaching it with compassion, patience, realizing it's often not about willpower.
Not at all. It could be a medical thing needing professional input.
Absolutely.
Okay, so keeping all these complexities in mind, what can actually help? What are some practical strategies and tools that might make a real difference? The EF coach had some good ideas.
Yes, definitely shifting away from the one-size-fits-all stuff. Personalization is key. So for task management, collaborating can be huge.
Like with a partner or a coach.
Yeah, or even just a supportive friend. Setting realistic expectations is vital. Breaking big goals down into small, manageable daily steps makes things feel less overwhelming.
Okay.
Simple to-do lists can work, but maybe getting help prioritizing them, like what's really urgent versus what can wait. That can be a game changer.
Makes sense. What about tackling time management? That seems like a big one.
Huge. And it needs to go beyond just writing times down. Yes, use planners, use timers, those are good starting points. But for some people, visual representations of time work much better.
How so?
Like color-coded blocks on a digital calendar. Seeing the chunk of time visually can be more impactful than just a number. Digital calendars are great anyway, with reminders and being able to share them with accountability partners.
Right, the reminders are key.
Totally. And breaking tasks down even further, like that 5-minute action idea, just do something for 5 minutes. It lowers the barrier to starting.
I like that. Less daunting. Organization is another big hurdle, right? Physical stuff, digital stuff.
Oh yeah, clutter can be overwhelming. So setting up clear systems is crucial. Simple things like using specific zippered pouches for different readings or project materials.
Containing the chaos.
Pretty much. And for digital info, using apps where you can quickly capture thoughts before they vanish. Color-coding study notes based on how well you know the material that helps you prioritize review time. And for building routines, habit-building apps can be really helpful. They give you reminders, track your progress for things like exercise or homework. Creates consistency.
I liked the idea about reframing deadlines, too.
Yeah, that was interesting. Instead of seeing them purely as stress inducers, trying to view them as tools that force decisions and push you forward, a mental shift. And mindfulness, while it might sound a bit counterintuitive if focus is hard,
Yeah.
practicing it can actually build that present moment awareness, which helps you notice when you're distracted and gently bring your focus back.
Okay, that makes sense. There are also some cool tricks for transitions, right? Between tasks.
Definitely, like pre-planning after breaks.
Yeah.
Before you step away, just quickly jot down the very next thing you need to do when you come back.
Less friction getting started again.
Exactly. And similar is the park on the downslope idea. At the end of the day, leave yourself a specific note or task ready to go for tomorrow morning. Builds momentum, reduces that, where do I even start feeling.
Reduces decision fatigue, first thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And for all those brilliant ideas that pop up when you're in the shower or driving,
Always.
have a system. Sticky notes, voice memos on your phone, maybe even those bathtub crayons someone mentioned. Just capture it quickly.
Okay, bathtub crayons, noted. What about the distraction log?
Yeah. Instead of fighting the distraction, just quickly write it down. Need to research X. Wondering about why. It acknowledges the thought without derailing you, and sometimes you see patterns.
Interesting. Like data collection on your own brain.
Kind of. For folks with time blindness, visual timers, where you can see time passing, can make it feel more concrete than just numbers on a clock.
Right.
And these routine flow apps sound useful too. You build a playlist of your morning return tasks with estimated times and just follow along. Automates the decisions.
Takes the thinking out of it.
Yeah. Quick note capture apps are great too, minimum clicks to get a thought down. Time blocking, where you schedule chunks of time for types of work rather than every single minute, offers more flexibility.
Less rigid.
Right. And maybe disable non-essential calendar reminders so you don't get a reminder fatigue.
Oh, that's a real thing.
No.
What about those if-then statements?
Implementation intentions. Really powerful. You link a cue to an action. If I walk downstairs, then I will make coffee and check my planner. Connects the dots.
Makes it more automatic.
Exactly.
Oh.
Also, just tracking your time. Honestly, tracking it can be eye-opening. Where does it actually go? Identify the time sinks.
Scary, but probably useful.
Creating a master to-do list. Just dump everything out of your head onto paper or a doc. Frees up that working memory. Defining your main focus areas and goals gives direction. Even mapping out ideal schedules, daily and weekly.
Even if they're aspirational.
Yeah, even then. It helps clarify priorities and spot potential conflicts.
It feels like a big part of this is building self-trust, like believing you can follow through.
Huge part. Start small. Add one tiny habit. Succeed. Build on that.
Yeah.
It builds confidence. Accountability partners can be amazing for this. Someone who gets it maybe struggles too. Mutual support.
Yeah, shared experience helps.
Reviewing your planner or list a daily habit is non-negotiable, really. The 10-minute rule. Just start that task you're avoiding for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Often that's enough to keep going.
Gets you over the hump.
Right. And managing clutter. The one-in, one-out rule for new purchases.
Yeah.
Breaking decluttering into tiny steps. Using labeled bins. Mindfulness again, even for clutter anxiety.
And sometimes professional help is the way.
Absolutely. Therapy to address emotional blocks, or working with an EF coach for tailored strategies and support. And finally, checking in regularly, maybe monthly, see what's working, what's not, and adjust. It's an ongoing process.
Wow, okay. That is an incredibly helpful toolkit of strategies. So, wrapping things up, what are the main things we should really take away from all this?
I think the biggest things are, first, executive function skills are absolutely fundamental for, navigating daily life. And second, challenges with EF are way more common and complex than that generic productivity advice often acknowledges.
Hmm.
And please remember this. Struggling with EF is not a reflection of your worth, your intelligence, or how hard you're trying. It's just not.
So important to hear that. Okay, and what about some first steps? If someone listening is thinking, okay, this resonates, what can they do?
I'd say start by experimenting. Pick just one or two strategies we talked about that really seem to click with your style or address your biggest pain point. Try it out.
Don't try to do everything at once.
Definitely not. And don't be afraid to use external tools, apps, timers, visual aids, whatever. They're there to compensate for internal challenges. Find what genuinely works for you. It's personal.
Great advice. Okay, so here's a final thought to leave you with. Given everything we've discussed, the diversity of EF challenges, the limits of one-size-fits-all advice, how might we, maybe as a society, start to shift our expectations around things like productivity and time management? How could we make things more inclusive and supportive of different ways of thinking and operating?
That's a big question.
It is definitely something to ponder. Thanks so much for taking this deep dive with us today.